Hi, students. Today's lesson is going to be talking about what's the problem, right? Identify illnesses and health problems. So when we use the word illness, we're talking about when you're sick with a cold, the flu, COVID-19 is an illness, right? But a health problem is something that you experience when our body doesn't work the way it's expected to. All the time or for a period of time, right? So a illness is like a cold. A health problem is like a heart murmur or seizures, right? Those are health problems. And an illness is something that I guess we say mental illness, and that doesn't go away, but illness is more of something that is happening for a certain period of time and then stops or goes away for a little bit, but then it can come back, right? And a health problem is something that is just all the time, right? I have seizures, or I have a health problem. I have a carpal tunnel, right, in my wrist. It's a health problem. So let's label the picture with words from the box. So let's read the words, right? We have runny nose, right? Runny nose, sore throat, fever, and headache, right? So runny nose is when it comes out of your nose. Sore throat is when, your throat hurts. Fever is when your temperature is, it goes up. And a headache is when your head hurts, right? On certain parts of your head. So let's look at the picture. Okay, so right, a headache is here or here, but it's around your head, around your brain, right? Is what it feels like, is it's kind of around where your brain is. And then we have a runny nose, right? We take a tissue, blow our nose, wipe our nose. A fever, we use a thermometer, right? Because we feel warmer, right? We feel kind of sick. And then a sore throat, right, is when our throat is sore, it hurts to swallow, it's kind of swollen here, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of not very good. Okay, so the next thing is we can talk about practicing speaking conversations, right? What's the matter, right? What's the matter is what the doctor's asking. And then the person, Miguel, says, "Doctor, I feel very sick. I have a terrible sore throat." And the doctor says, "You have the flu." And Miguel says, "The flu?" And the doctor says, "Yes, the flu." So we're going to talk about intonation when asking questions. So English is not a tonal language. It is not like Mandarin. It is not like Thai. Lots of other languages are tonal, where if you say a word and the pitch, the tone goes up or down, or it changes, that's tonal. Intonation is how the tone moves. And it's not because it changes what you're saying. It just helps people to understand your meaning, what you mean, what is meant when you say something. So usually in English, when we say an information question, "What's the matter?" Right? What's the matter? It goes up and then down. Who is your brother? Who is your manager? Um, is Sarah here today? Right? But when we do a clarification question, it can be the flu, right? Are you sick today? Is it the flu? Right? So you can go up with a clarification question, something you're trying to figure out what's going on, right? So this isn't, you don't have to speak this way. It's just to kind of help you understand when people change their intonation. It's usually because of a question, right? So not a big deal. You don't have to do it. People will still understand what you're saying if you don't do it. But it just kind of, intonation sometimes can be important when you're trying to kind of give off a certain feeling or meaning. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. So it says analyze, right? Read, figure out, right? So analyze. So let's analyze this information, right? It says read about colds and flus. So it says every year people have both colds and the flu. What is the difference? Usually a person with a cold or the flu has a headache and a sore throat. A person with a cold sometimes has a low fever, and a person with the flu has a high fever and muscle aches. Cold symptoms also include a runny nose. Flu symptoms include a dry cough. Okay, so we have the information, right? And it wants us to look at common cold symptoms and common flu symptoms. So let's go ahead and work on that. Okay, so every year people have both colds and the flu. What is the difference? Usually a person with the cold or the flu has a headache and a sore throat. So that's the cold and the flu. So in the cold symptoms, it has sore throat, but we also need to put a headache. Headache. And we have headache over here under common flu symptoms, but it doesn't have sore throat. So let's go ahead and add that. Sore throat. Okay, a person with a cold sometimes has a low fever, right? So we could say that. We could say low fever because it's a common cold. Low fever, a low fever. And a person with the flu has a high fever and muscle aches, right? So a person with the flu has high fever, that's here, and muscle aches. So let's go ahead and write that, right? Muscle aches, right? Muscle aches. Cold symptoms also include a runny nose, right? We got runny nose here. Flu symptoms include a dry cough, and we've got the dry cough, right? Okay, so that's our chart, right? Okay, now let's keep going. And now we're going to do a Venn diagram. This is called a Venn diagram, but it could just be a diagram. So it says compare the diagram using the information from the exercise we did, right? So we know that a cold and a flu, right? It says usually a person with a cold or the flu has a headache and a sore throat. So we know that both have a headache and a sore throat. Sore throat. We know that the flu has a high fever, right? It has a high fever. It has a dry cough, where some of the things we said, a cold has a runny nose, right? So you'll see that the middle is for both, something that both colds and flus have. And this side is just colds, only colds. And this side is only the flu, right? Okay, so that's how we use a diagram. Let's go ahead and keep going. Let's talk about some symptoms though, really quick. So it says flu symptoms include a dry cough. A dry cough is the opposite of a wet cough. So dry is the opposite of wet. Wet is the opposite of dry. So a dry cough, right, is when it's like that. A wet cough is when you can hear the phlegm and the kind of the stuff at the back of your throat kind of moving around, smacking around, right? So that's what a dry cough is. And a low fever is the opposite of a high fever. A high fever is the opposite of a low fever, right? Low, high. So a low fever is, I think, under 100 degrees, maybe 100, and a high fever is over 100, right? So if you get a really high fever, it can be dangerous. It can do a lot of bad things. So that's why sometimes when you have a really bad high fever, you need to go to the hospital. And if it's a low fever, it's okay to just sleep in, stay home, right? But we went over the other ones: headache, sore throat, runny nose, muscle aches, right? Things that when your muscle just feels like every time you move, it hurts, right? So, and the next thing we're going to do is it says study the charts with your classmates and teacher. So this is just talking about how we use the simple present of have, right? I have a headache. You have a sore throat. We have a headache. They have a sore throat, right? So I, you, they, we say have. He, she, it has. She has a sore throat. He has a fever. She has a stomach ache. Usually we don't use it for people. Actually, it's kind of rude if you use it for people. So we don't use it. Sometimes people use it for animals, like, oh, that animal over there, it is sick. But it just depends. Usually we use it for non-living objects, rocks, computers, TVs, things like that. It. But usually we don't, computers and stuff can't really be sick. So anyways, so we have, has, right? Okay. And then we can make it negative, right? I, you, we, they do not, or we can say don't have. I don't have a headache. I don't have a sore throat. They don't have a cold. We don't have COVID, right? We can use that. So sometimes you can use we have, or I have, you have, they have, he has, she has, it has. Because we can say, somebody could say, oh, where did Gina go? And somebody could say, oh, she has a cold, she went home. Right? We can use things like that. Negative, right? We can say, I don't have a cold. Can I come to work today? Right? Or you could call and say, hey, I got tested. I don't, or I do not have COVID. Can I come back to work? Right? So we can use have, do not have, or don't have. And if you use he, she, or it, instead of the S, right, has, we still use have for them, he, she, it, but we say does not, or doesn't. He doesn't have COVID. She doesn't have the flu, right? Okay, so, and it says complete the sentences with the correct form of the verb. Headache, stomach ache, fever, right? So we can say Armando, this person up here, and it says headache, stomach ache, fever. Armando, right? We're talking about one person that is not us. So we say Armando has a headache. Armando and Yusuf, right? They have backaches. Yusuf has, it's just one, right? Has a cough. Then we have Lien, let's get the annotation. Sorry, one second. Lien has a fever, right? Lien has a fever. Okay, now we can go down more. Armando and Lien they have, right? Armando and Lien have stomach aches. Yusuf and Lien have sore throats. They have sore throats. And the question at the end, what other illnesses do you know? Use a dictionary and list illnesses and symptoms in your notebook. So this one, just think about, maybe an illness that you have, or a health issue, or a health problem, and figure out how to spell it, right? Look it up on the internet, and practice spelling it, right? I have carpal tunnel. I have sclerosis, right? I have diabetes. Or you could say my spouse has, right? That's the person you're married to. My spouse has diabetes. My spouse has heart murmurs, right? So my child has depression, right? My child has anxiety. So we can use that to talk about lots of things and for lots of different people to describe to other people so they know kind of how your life is and things that you have to deal with or work with because of illnesses or health issues. So that's it for today, and I will see you next time. Bye.